Hey gang, it's Ekwols here. As it's the start of a new year, I've done a clean out of the studio. Thought it'd be a nice time to show you guys around. Come on in. Welcome to the Crypt. So this is a Crypt. It's my small studio. I've been building this for the past 10 years. Used to be a single small bedroom, and I would be in here with just my laptop. Obviously it's changed quite a bit over the past 10 years. So this is the heart of my workflow. I'm running Ableton 11 on a desktop, which is under here. My good friend Ed helped me spec and put together. We've got dual monitors, one with my analyzers on here. I use the Vision 4X. Which is really nice for reconfiguring and being able to keep track of the frequencies of things as I'm working on them. And I keep my project window over here, so I've just got these both set up all the time. I'm running all the sound through a relatively basic sound card, the low-end quad capture. I've had it for 15 years or so as well. It's just got a single preamp input for recording sources, but I've got a small mixing desk here, which allows me to take in different mics, condenser mics, live mics, decks, whatever I'm wanting to record, and everything's kind of set up there so that I just have to flick a switch and it's ready to go start recording into a project immediately when I need it. In the past I've had many more instruments and different things available to me, but if they're not plugged in, wired up, ready to go, I found I didn't use them, and I've kind of really stripped everything back to just the key things that I use and making sure that they're ready to go as soon as I need to get stuck in. As it's a small square room, the acoustics aren't great in here, so although I have a set of KRK monitors, which they on their own sound great, it's very hard to find a sweet spot in here. I do have some acoustic treatment, but it's really just for the high frequencies. I did put in some extremely large bass traps in the corners before, but it took up more than half of the room, so I had to take those out, and actually I've shifted to using a set of Bear Dynamic 990s for most of my writing process, and use a reference for headphone software in Ableton, which flattens out the frequency response of the headphones. So although all my sounds, or most of my sounds, are generated in Ableton, I've got three instruments which I use to either perform, write, or tweak the sounds that I'm making in the studio. So up here, up front of house, first one is the Push 2, Ableton Push 2. I use this really just to tweak and automate and add articulation to sounds that I've got running in Serum or Ableton. A little bit like this. Just gives me something tactile, quick, right there in front of me, many different options that I can tweak and play with, and that allows me to add a little bit of a human element into something that is all digital really effectively. And next up is this guitar, the Ekwols Les Paul. This one's in my DNA. It's been with me for a very long time. My dad got this when I must have been about 14 or 15 from a pawn shop in the States, and within about 2 years I'd snatched it off him and taken it on all my various punk tours, etc., playing in bands and things like that. So mostly I'll use this for writing chord structures or melody lines on top of my tracks. It is the instrument that I'm most comfortable playing with and writing with, so for me it's really quick to pick up and come out with some good ideas without having to mess around too much. It's been missing this machine head and the bottom string for almost 15 years, so it has its own sound, but I'm used to playing it with only 5 strings. I pick it up when I'm and play on it when I'm trying to write vocals as well. It's a nice way to be involved and feel the music at the same time as you're trying to work out lyric structures and patterns. But yeah, I think this one will stick with me until the end of time. This is the one that's in my DNA, and yeah, I couldn't do anything without it, I don't think. Yeah. And last but not least, I've got a 60 key piano here. It's a Native Instruments complete. I'm not a great piano player by any means, but I like having this here because I'm so comfortable playing through the guitar. I have a certain way and style of playing through the guitar. But that means often that if I'm writing through the guitar, I'll come up with the same ideas. Whereas something like shifting over to the piano and trying to use my hands in chord structures that I'm not necessarily that familiar with, I come out with different ideas, different sounds, different inspirations that can trigger new ideas for tracks. And so I like to keep this here. I don't use it a lot, but it's a good way to come up with novel ideas. So I try and keep my setup in Ableton similar to the studio, as minimal and as streamlined as possible. I love how Ableton allows you to set up these favourite group folders at the top, and I do that for each of my different core modules, I guess you could say, in my project. So I'll create a folder of instruments, a folder of distortion units, a folder of reverb and convolution units. And essentially, although I've got very many VSTs collected over many years, I have just my favourites quickly accessible in these kind of favourite groups, and this allows me to work really quickly. What I've got here are the kind of key synthesizers I use. Kick 2 for drum synthesis, Contact, I've got a lot of Contact libraries there, especially like the Spitfire ones. Phase Plant and Serum are my two main kind of synthesis units for basses, leads, etc. Superior Drummer for live drums. But you'll see also in here I've also saved a lot of my own instruments that are kind of different types of instruments, different specific templates, and I can easily drag and drop those in to the project, once again speeding things up. So I just have a few distortion units here in my saved group. So I've got Camel Fat, a basic wave shaper, Trash 2, Rift, and Uber Loud is really nice as well for adding crunch. I love still using Camel Fat. One of the very first plugins I bought many years ago, but it's still something I reach for in every project, to be honest. For reverb and space, I love the Valhalla stuff, especially the free Valhalla Supermassive. I use that on a lot of tracks, pretty much. Sounds fantastic, and you can go super large with that one, to be honest. And then one of my key tools is Shaperbox by Cable Guys. I use this for so much, a lot of drum shaping, a lot of wild kind of glitchy and random effects for basses and things like that. It's a really good way to add spice to your lead patterns and things like that as well, so definitely worth looking into if you don't have that one. Now, obviously I could go really deep into Ableton and the workflow I'm using and everything, but I'll maybe save that for another video if that's something people would be interested in at a later date. So I have two deck setups in the studio. The first one I've got here is a turntablism setup. You can see I've got a nice Ekwols logo slip mat here from my good friend Dave. It's an RP 8000 Reloop turntable, which is absolutely solid, and Reloop Elite battle mixer to go with it. So I got into DJing in the early 2000s, and what I was really excited about at the time was turntablism, and I've kind of done that for fun ever since those early days. So that's why I still have to have one of these kind of setups in the studio. I just really enjoy scratching, cutting, glitching and affecting, playing with the music live as if it's an instrument. So what I've got set up here is you end up using a piece of vinyl to control music files through the iPad, and that's also hooked into the mixer, so you can use effects and chop and glitch the beats as they're playing live. It's so much fun, and it gets me out of my chair, and it's a really good workout. So and then finally I've got my 4 Pioneer deck set up here, which is amazing. I absolutely love playing on this stuff. I've actually got 3 different types of CDJ here. I've got the XDJ 1000, a CDJ 2000 and a 3000. It's good then, regardless of what you end up trying to play with, you're kind of a bit familiar with the equipment. The CDG2000 is a bit quirky and a bit temperamental. If I move the pitch fader, can often jump on its own while you're playing, which is not a good thing. I also can't use the mem cues because there's a bit of an issue or a glitch in there where it will delete the memory points as I'm using it, so I have to be really careful when I'm using this, and sometimes I have to use it in sync, but it's good fun. It's good practice for those inevitable hiccups when you come to play at a rave and some of the equipment isn't working as well. Once again, it's great having it set up ready to go at any point in time for trying out new mixes and getting ready for shows. So that's my studio. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you on the dance floor. Take it easy.